Boys, I don't know about you, but during the holidays, I get carried away. Food-wise, I gotta try everything. Ham, turkey, dressing, sweet potato casserole. The problem with these foods is, well, they're calorie dense, which is why today's video is sponsored by Factor. Factor delivers nutritious, ready-made meals right to your doorstep, and they have unbelievable variety. With over 80 chef-crafted weekly meals from across the globe, including Asian and Mediterranean cuisine, on top of gluten-free, high-protein, and calorie-smart options, Factor literally makes it easier to build and maintain healthy eating habits that we so desperately need this time of the year. I personally love Factor because it helps me stick to a routine. It's ready in 2 minutes, it tastes great, and it requires zero cleanup. And since Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, they have an even wider array of meal plans that you can choose from. And there's something here for absolutely everyone. And I switch between both of these all the time. If you'd like to try out Factor for yourself, head on over to factor75.com, or you can click the link down below and use Aztecross FB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code Aztecross FB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for an entire year. The video I wanted to watch today is a video that affects all of us. And the title here, Primary Weapons Are Desperate for a Buff. There's a video by Duck here, guys. We're going to take a look at it. Now, let me ask you something. In day one content, when have you ever really cared about what your primary weapon is? Matter of fact, how many of you rock double special on a regular basis?
Primary ammo weapons in Destiny 2 have a big problem, and that is they just quite simply suck. The vast majority of them right now, especially in high-end -30 or -40 content, are just straight up pea shooters. You are much better off using one of many ability spam builds, or running some double special setup, otherwise face an activity which is going to take you so much longer to complete. While we can work around this in many ways, and people are doing exactly that, primaries being so weak is causing a huge problem. That being half of the weapon loot pool is just not worth looking at, especially for high-end players, but this affects everybody. Someone trying out a primary weapon in a match-made activity, taking out maybe one red bar per clip, while a teammate is exploding rooms with a singular scatter grenade. This isn't exactly enjoyable for them. And I don't think this is really a problem with scatter nades. Primaries just need a buff.
Dude, I mean, just think about it. You're always looking for the next, if there is a weapon you're excited about, you're looking for the next rocket-assisted weapon, the rocket-assisted pulse rifle, or that new sidearm, something that blends, that it's a special weapon still. And again, most people, especially day one content, are rocking double special.
The primary problem does have quite a few layers to it, so in this video, I'll be breaking it down to sections, the first of which being paired exotics. If a certain primary weapon is good, often it is entirely because of an accompanying exotic armor piece. Examples of this include SMGs with Peacekeepers, hand cannons with Lucky Pants, auto rifles with Acting War Rig, and sidearms with Mechania's Trick Sleeves. These exotics provide a ludicrous, easy to achieve damage boost to compensate for how bad the weapons are. Like Peacekeepers can hold a 100% damage boost for hitting 20 SMG shots, while Lucky Pants can get a much higher 450% damage boost, with the trade-off of not always being available, requiring a cooldown between each proc. With these kinds of numbers, these exotics are making primaries usable, but at a cost. The weapon type associated with them cannot be too strong at base, otherwise it will get out of control. With Lucky Pants, you might see where I'm going with this. It's a bit of a balancing problem caused by these exotics. SMGs are close range, high risk weapons, yet have a sustained DPS lower than most other primary weapon types, including scout rifles. The only reason I could think of for this is just to keep Peacekeepers in check. My main point being, whole archetypes of weapons should not need an exotic to function. It makes them only usable on one class and with one build. Outside of that, just don't bother.
So essentially saying, because of the exotics that are boosting their associated weapon types, it instead essentially lowers the efficacy of all of the weapons in that category. That's a great way of thinking, yeah. Because Bungie's having to take into account that people are going to pair it with the exotic, and so they're balancing from that top end down.
Keeping with the SMG example, the only ones used outside of Peacekeepers is Yeartide Apex, which is not currently available, or the Multimac, which, you guessed it, is not currently available. Both of these just spew out orbs, to help the parts of your build which actually matter. However, there's a bigger problem here. Let's take a look at which weapons pair best with these exotics. Lucky Pants, it's the Uncivil Discord.
Yep.
So powerful a combination it had to be disabled in the Day 1 Equilibrium dungeon. Actium War Rig is the Choir of One. This auto just does 10 times more than any other, and you can maintain ammo with it easily. Mechanier's Trick Sleeves take a pick of any rocket sidearm, although I don't use these much because the activation criteria is a bit finicky.
It is.
Peacekeepers, it's the M17 Fast Talker. The new heat system lets us fire for longer and deal intrinsically more damage than other SMGs, as well as it has a pretty strong perk pool. So essentially, we are one special ammo SMG away from complete primary extinction. M17 doing its damn best to keep an entire roster of weapons viable in the endgame. Even with the only thing making...
So keep in mind what he's saying here, guys. The best viable weapons outside of the M17 Fast Talker with Peacekeepers are other special weapons. And look, I love damage. Like, I love damage. But fire, special weapon. Civil Discourse, another special weapon. You can make a case for a Final Warning for Mechanier's Trick Sleeves, although the activation for it is annoying.
Other SMGs, as well as it has a pretty strong perk pool. So essentially, we are one special ammo SMG away from complete primary extinction. M17 doing its damn best to keep an entire roster of weapons viable in the endgame. Even with the only thing making primary ammo weapons viable, more often than not, a special ammo option pretending to be a primary just does a better job. If an equivalent to Peacekeepers would come out for pulse rifles, what do you think people would use with it? Would it be Grid Skipper or Mint Retrograde? What I think should be done about these will be later in the video. So we've gone over paired exotics. Where are primary weapons found in the current endgame loadouts apart from that? The only potential is utility, and even that I believe is getting smaller. Again, at on power this is not always the case. Anything will work here, but it's all relative. If a build can tear through -30 content, it will completely decimate -0. A loadout with a primary at -0 will just get through it at regular pace. You can try this out for yourself if you'd like. Just run a GM Lawless Frontier mainly using your primary weapon. Take your pick of any and make it a good one. You will just have to hope your teammates aren't doing likewise, otherwise you are in for a very long shift. If you want to take it even further, try any primary ammo option in a GM Vanguard alert. You could even take a pairing exotic if you want. It will just not be ideal. So then, that utility, back to the Yeartide Apex. This takes like 25 shots to generate an orb of power with attrition orbs, and at 900 RPM that is pretty quick. Not only that, but in column 4 it can roll Chaos Reshaped. This is a huge 35% damage buff, taking it from Pea Shooter to Pea Shooter. Brilliant. But it provides passive healing over time just for having this weapon held, which is another layer of utility. Because of this, Yeartide is viable, as it enables the parts of a build which actually matter. Orbs can give you a bunch of weapon surges so that your other options can deal more damage, or activate fonts, or a bunch of other effects like fragment synergies, the list goes on. But Yeartide is not used for damage. Yeartide is also not available until next summer, where they will probably change your perk pool and make it worse. Utility can come in other forms too. Perks like Jolting Feedback can synergize with our arc build, and some primary ammo weapons can proc this quite quickly, but things like this aren't typically a meta-defining role. Most meta loadouts will just run double special. There's no risk, it's just the default. Special ammo is so abundant, and some special ammo weapons, Choir, have so much ammo that it wouldn't matter regardless. I know this is a seasonal thing, so I'm not that too bothered about it, but right now if you run a special or heavy kinetic weapon, they have essentially infinite ammo, so that is pushing out primaries even more.
Because of kinetic synthesis. I'm gonna be honest, like with Praxic Blade, I'm able to run double special with no downsides, and a lot of that has to do with the Praxic Blade itself and its ability to create ammo. But ammo economies for specials is very lenient, and then you have the artifact mods too, with like kinetic synthesis, which aids that even further. We're in a weird situation, guys. We're in a weird situation where double special is honestly easier now to run than ever, despite Bungie, you know, in their attempts to really pull back double special. But there's just so many easy ways to build into it, into ammo generation, special finishers, things like that. Another YouTuber crying. I don't think he's crying. I think he's pointing out that we have a ton of weapons that no one really cares to use. Why would they? When there's way more efficient weapons that are special weapons. I mean, literally, guys. At one time, people used to pick up a Sunshot and be like, I'm going to rock Sunshot and Path of Burning Steps, and this is my loadout. What if primary damage was not affected by deltas? I don't know. Let me listen to what he has to say, Les. I'm actually really curious because I don't know what you can do outside of like nerfing special ammo economies heavily. But let me see what he has to say.
And then there's the real endgame, contest raids and dungeons. Equilibrium dungeons, Dredge and Seer all but demand a double special to meet DPS check requirements. This is kind of to be expected, and double special did work fine. But again, the problem isn't so much what players have to do to clear, as they will find a way. The problem is so much of the loot, including from this dungeon itself, is not seen as useful at all, because it's a primary. With everything, there are exceptions, and this is even outside of the utility. Most of these come from exotics. A few of these I can think of when it comes to usable primary ammo exotics include Graviton Lance, Final Warning, and Outbreak Perfected. There's a few more of these, but these kind of weapons can be used as a baseline. They may work a bit differently to legendary weapons, but the main thing is their sustained outgoing damage is more. This combined with the inherent damage buff they received against red bar enemies can make them usable. Hopefully others can be brought to this kind of level, but even here these are the exception. For every banger exotic primary, there's 5 mids. Realistically, a blanket buff would be the solution here. There's also heat weapons. These are flat out power creep. But for the primary options, that doesn't matter. Yeah, they are better, and it is a step up in usability, but they're still so far behind special ammo options. This set of weapons still suffer exactly the same too. In Onlight, they actually feel incredible, the Dungeon Scout and Auto especially. They have things like being able to activate heal clip by just venting a small amount, which is a pretty neat touch. But in -30, why would you use these? Enemies take so long to kill, but half of these perks end up just not even mattering. Also, these heat weapons do end up invalidating every other primary in their archetype. So if primaries are ever usable again, this may become a problem. So a lot of problems then, but I'm not going to end off this video without at least offering a solution. I don't know if this is the best one or if anything will ever end up happening to bring back primaries, but here it is. One way is to give primary weapons an escalating damage buff as the activities get harder. The delta could be used for a rough guide. If you're in a -30 gem activities, primary weapons deal 30% more. If you're in a -50 ultimate activity, primary ammo weapons deal 50% more. Even this I don't think is enough. At base, every single primary weapon should be getting a maybe 20 to 30% damage buff, maybe more. The pairing exotics may need to be adjusted to compensate for this, but these are just a few gear pieces in comparison to the hundreds of useless legendary primary options. Also, these pairing exotics are likely to become more and more problematic as Bungie experiment with weapon types, which I do think is something they should keep doing. So pairing exotics should simply just not work with special ammo weapons. Easy enough. Of course, there's also the nuclear solution, the Destiny 1 weapon system.
Oh
Primary
man!
ammo weapons in one slot, specials in the other, then heavies in the last.
That's what I was gonna say. They could. Everyone's thinking that a sequel's being made, but who knows? If a sequel is being made, what do y'all think? Should Bungie go back to the D1 system, where you could only hold one special weapon, one primary, and one heavy? I really love the flexibility of D2, guys. Like, I really love the ability to, use pretty much whatever I want to use. But holding it doesn't mean I'm going to use it. You will if the ammo economy is shit less. I'm going to say this, I agree with what's being said. I also don't think that I don't think double special is the the biggest enemies. I actually think the biggest enemy is abilities. I mean, we talk about like what is the perfect split between ability usage and weapon usage. Guys, you can clear the entire dungeon and shoot your weapon maybe a handful of times. Like ability usage is extremely high, and they're very good. You can clear out a room better with getaway artists than you ever can with a weapon itself. And you don't even have to aim. That's the other thing. You don't even have to aim and shoot. Yeah, it's just one of those things though. Like people actually like their Guardian fantasy is that ability spam. You take that away, Destiny doesn't feel the same to them. You've given them the ability to run around with their abilities and melt everything and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Use it like play any hunter build with like that's prismatic. You're using Ascension. You're constantly throwing out abilities left and right, dude. You're popping prismatic. You're throwing your prismatic. Dude, there is so much happening over there that to suddenly just say, no, you can't do that anymore. Hold your primary weapon and use that instead. It might be a bit jarring for them. I love it too. Like that's the thing. It's coming from a place that actually does love the ability spam builds as well. I have a good time with them. What do I think the perfect balance is? I guess we would really have to sit down and analyze what is more skillful in Destiny. Is it looking at a group of ads, shooting them 3-4 times with a sunshot and clearing all of them out? Or is it running up to them, hitting them with combination blow, dodging, hitting them again? What is quote unquote more skillful? You say, well, going up and hitting a melee off is putting you at more risk because you're at close proximity to the enemy. All right, well, what about a grenade-based build? If you're sitting there just overcharging axes and bolts, clearing out an entire room, that's not very risky. You know what I mean? I do think that, and before we even nerf abilities or uptime for any of those things, I think across the board, you give primary weapons a 40% buff. Just chunk it, everything. But it applies only to primary weapons. It completely skips over things like Choir and the weapon pairings that uncivil, because those are special weapons. And that would just make those outliers substantially stronger. I don't even know if 40% is enough, but you could try 40%, see what happens after that. Power creep will happen, but power creep is already happening. Guys, what you're doing with this primary weapons, you're not trying to power creep with primary weapons. You're just trying to close the gap between what primary weapons does right now and what abilities already do way more effectively, or special weapons. You're just closing that gap. You're making them a viable option. I think Les said it perfect. Make primary weapons ignore deltas. So that's interesting. Primary weapons ignoring deltas. Just be ready. You may be in a situation where DPS is going to be on a day one raid or dungeon. DPS could literally be a team of 6 guardians using final warning.
I don't think Bungie should do this. It's going to be much more effort than it's worth, but it would work.
Going back to the D1
content
system, yeah.
would have to be rebalanced around it. Maybe they go back to this in Destiny 3. Then there's also just nerfing special and heavy ammo weapons as well as abilities. Also, not a big fan of this, because above everything else, the game is just supposed to be fun. The power fantasy of hitting big abilities and perfectly timed heavy spam should absolutely remain. So closing up, primaries will never and should not power creep specials or abilities, but the balance in between the two right now is ridiculously out of balance. Destiny has such a wide weapon pool, but when half of it becomes useless when even a bit of challenge is added, that's not great at all. Being reduced to an orb printer and not even being the main choice when it comes to pairing exotics is a pretty tough state to be in. Primaries do need that huge damage buff to make them at the very least usable. Anyway, enough yapping. Hopefully I at least made a bit of sense in this video. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe and comment with your favourite pea shooter. I'll be giving away some emblems to commenters in my Discord at the end of the week, so join up there too.
No, good video, man.
Thank you for watching.
Good video. Look, I mean, he's making a lot of valid points. Primary weapons are not good weapons. Again, there are outliers, of course. Outbreak is an outlier. Graviton Lance is an outlier. Final Warning is an outlier. But even those have been actually pulled back on. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people are going to rock double special when it comes to day one content. So the idea that Les has there, where primary weapons stay the same damage no matter the power delta, is a pretty crazy one. I would just have to see what the numbers for something like that would look like. That would 1000% make them viable, maybe even OP. Again, you could be in a situation where DPS rolls around and everybody's sitting there with a final warning and they're procking unraveling and just going to pound town. It's a thought. It's a thought for sure. But what that means is that base, they wouldn't be too crazy. So they wouldn't be, you know, essentially just leveling an entire field of enemies. They'll be good enough, but then they continue to remain strong, at some point surpassing even other weapons. Because you could be in a situation too where, you know, your primary weapon is doing more damage than your special counterpart at like, what would that be? -40? You know, -4, -50? You mean a situation where it quite literally on a per shot basis does more damage, which doesn't make a lot of sense, even if it does make primary weapons now viable. Yeah, I think with something like that, you would be in a situation where Peacekeeper Titans would be the reigning champions. Lucky Pants users would I mean, those are the things that would suddenly become meta over everything else if that ignored the deltas there. The other question is, guys, do you care about primary weapons? Like, I mean, like I'm not talking about just like in the state of it, like, but like, are some of you missing using Collective Obligation and Sunshot? I would if they weren't so useless. I actually like, I don't think, has anyone ever asked Bungie what their goal, like, has Sandbox team ever been asked, like, what is the goal? Is it a 50-50 split between weapons and abilities? Like, what is it that is the sweet spot you guys are trying to target? I would really want to know, like, what Bungie's philosophy on that is. And yes, there are, after the crafting is when Bungie started to really merge archetypes. And we started getting all these special weapons that were primaries. And you had this blending occur. And, you know, they're potent. They're very potent. I like rocket pulse rifles. I like Choir of One. They're fucking good, dude. They are very good. And so, you know, if I'm looking at Choir, 99% of primaries, I'm not going to use that over Choir. Why would I? Choir literally outperforms it on every single level from a functionality standpoint and a damage standpoint. I also don't think the solution is to go in there and just be like, let's kill Choir. You know what I mean? I think there's a world in here where primaries across the board can be buffed, and it just needs to be that middle ground. Why use a hard light? God dog it, man. It's so sad. I forgot hard light even existed. I would say primary weapons. Like, did anybody realize that Soros Regime got a hefty buff, like a huge ease of use buff at the beginning of this season, where it can swap between focus fire and spinning up? Probably not. Who exactly? It doesn't, to most people, it doesn't even matter. Soros who? And at what time? Soros was like one of the most iconic weapons. Osteo Striga as well. The other thing that Bungie, I think, should really do is buff the traits on primary weapons. Like, full send that shit. I mean, like, Rampage shouldn't go to 33%. That. Give me 70%. Give me 80%. I gotta go get a kill with a primary weapon. Make it worth it. And like, that's not even buffing the base of the weapon. You still got to go get a kill with the weapon.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.